Good evening to everybody. We want to thank Anita, Lee, and her family for sponsoring the Short About Torah on for the last Shabbat of the year. And it's Le'ilu Nishmat, her husband, late husband, Klav Lee, Eliezer, Mordechai ben Eliezer, Zichrono Livracha, that his neshama, Nitzavim, should have an aliyah, should have an ascent in Gan Eden. Parsha Nitzavim speaks about a covenant that Moshe made with the Jewish people and Hashem. And the importance of this covenant is that it's just prior to Am Yisrael going into Eretz Yisrael, and the necessity for such a covenant, even though there was a covenant already done at Har Sinai, and then it was repeated in the mountain of Moab. Arvot Moab, the plain of Moab. So why is this being repeated? In the Gemara Masechet Sanhedrin, it says because when we enter into Eretz Yisrael, the Jewish people assume a greater responsibility one for the other when they in exile or when they're in other people's country. So they don't call the shots, they don't determine how life is going to be. They're in a foreign land, so therefore the level of responsibility is limited. But as they're coming to Eretz Yisrael, where we're sovereign in our country, and we determine our destiny with the help of Hashem. So then there's a greater responsibility for each person to his fellow man. So that's why there's this third covenant which is entered into. Now, having said that, the Moshe Rabbeinu says, goes through the various strata and classes that make up Am Yisrael. So I'll read to you just in English, or first in Hebrew. It says, "Atem nitzavim hayom kolchem livnei Hashem nukechem roshechem shivtechem ziknechem b'shotechem kol Yisrael." You're entering today in the covenant, the heads of your tribes, your elders, your officers, all the men of Israel. And then the Torah continues. Your small children, your women, your proselytes in the midst of your camp. And then it adds, from the hewer of your wood to the drawer of your water. So they're all classes of people. They're the leadership, and there's the officers, etc. Then there's the children, another category, the women, another category, the Gerim and the proselytes, another category. And then the Torah speaks about the lower strata of the Jewish people, the cutters of wood and the drawers of water. The question is, though, that why does the Torah stipulate and give two examples of those who are on a lower level? In other words, the people who draw water and the people who cut wood. Why does it have to give two examples? We understand that the draw water or the cutter of wood is on the lower rung of society. And I saw an amazing explanation, which is very pertinent, not generally, but especially before Rosh Hashanah. The Torah is trying to tell you that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has got his focus and his hashgacha, his divine providence. He oversees every single individual in all his details. And even within the lower strata of society, he differentiates between those people who are cutters of wood and those people who draw water. In other words, Hashem doesn't just look at things like in a very general way, but very, very exact, very, very detailed, very specific. And even within a certain category, Hashem has got his focus on different types of people who are hewers of cutters of wood and drawers of water. And this has got significance because especially when we come to Israel, sometimes we seem to get lost in, and it's a very, very noble, matter what I'm speaking about, is that our identity is assumed by the fact that we contribute to the Medina of Israel, to to the country of Israel, to the state of Israel, to the army, etc. And our individuality, in other words, the demands that we have on ourselves as individuals to grow, sometimes falls by the way. We think to ourselves, but you know what, I contribute to Tzal, I go to the army, what I do is I volunteer, let's say at Laniado. And these obviously are great, very, very noble expectations that the Torah expects of someone, and in fact to develop someone. But many times we are not so strict and not exacting so much about how much we as people, not our contribution to others, but how are we as individuals supposed to develop ourselves like fully. And this is the message. The message is that, yes, everyone is now entering into a covenant. Everyone is now going to be connected one with the other, but not to forget that Hashem is now looking at every single individual, even within a certain class, and is demanding that that individual reaches the maximum of his development. On Rosh Hashanah, we've got, as we know, 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. And the Zohar says that the first day of Rosh Hashanah is a person is judged as an individual. And the second day of Rosh Hashanah, he and she are judged according to their contributions to the communal, to the state, to generally to society. But the whole point that there's 2 days of Rosh Hashanah is that we can't overlook the fact that we judge as individual on that first day. Hashem gave us certain talents, and he wants us to mamash, to develop those talents to the maximum of our ability. And we can't, as I say, hide by the fact that we contribute only to the community, and we let our demands on ourselves not go by the way. So this is the great message of Parshat Nitzavim in its opening, right? To remember that we do have to obviously have to give to the klal. The klal is something which is so strong. That's why we always daven in the minyan, because our force and our power as individual is limited. But at the same time, the whole point of the din of Rosh Hashanah is that that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to give the maximum talent that he endowed us with, these potentially that should be realized as much as possible. So again, Shana Tova, Nektiva Chavachatim Tova, should have a good year and a sweet year and a happy year and a nachastika year and healthy year to you and all your families, and everything that you want, HaKadosh Baruch Hu should give you the Tova. Shana Tova.